This video is going to be one of those uncomfortable topics that a lot of people try to avoid talking about, but I've kind of grown from that. I've kind of grown from like holding back, trying not to, speak my mind on things. And to the 8 people who, watch my videos and stuff, this video is going to be more of a rant video. So it's a little bit different from, my usual style of things. So I'm sorry to you guys. I'm sure you guys are going to be, so upset with me that I've changed. I've changed the way that I'm making videos these past 2 videos, I guess. But, let's get into it. So, I grew up in the South. I still live in the South. I'm sure everyone knows about the Bible Belt, what that's called, where it's just like a big line across the U.S. of just churches and like very, very Christian groups. I'm in the like depth of the Bible Belt. Like everyone around here is a Christian, or everyone around here believes in something in some way. Like there's not that many like atheists where I live, or like people that aren't really tied to a certain religion. Like it's kind of just known that you're a Christian unless you say otherwise where I live, you know? But the thing is, what's different about the way I grew up is my parents didn't really take me to churches or anything because my parents both had really bad experiences with churches and everything. I remember my mom telling me stories about pastors and stuff that used to like yell at her, and my dad used to say the same thing. And my parents just didn't want me growing up around that, around people talking about hate and being hateful to one another, in a Christian setting because they didn't believe like that's what Christianity is all about. And I don't believe that either now today. But they just didn't want me, growing up in churches that would make me see a certain way or view people in a certain way, in like a hateful way. But moving on, I'm yapping again. I always yap whenever I'm doing these uncut videos. But I didn't really grow up in the church. I didn't really grow up super Christian. Like my parents never really had a Bible at our house. They talked about Jesus and we like said prayers every night and everything, but I never really understood. Like it was never really made clear to me like what Christianity was really all about. The only way that I really was able to see Christianity is in the school that I went to. And in my video before this, I really talked about like how bad that school really was that I went to. Like it was not good. Like I didn't talk to a whole lot of people. I didn't have many friends or anything. But the friends that I did have, like the very few friends I did have, that's really the only way I heard about Christianity is because they would talk about it and they would talk about what their parents said about it, and I would hear what Christianity was about through like a filter of like what made sense to like a little kid. Like do you know how little kids go around saying like what their parents say but like in a slightly like skewed way? Well, that's kind of what I went through. Like, there's this one specific story that I wanted to talk about in today's video that I thought was kind of funny. To really point out, like, how I viewed Christianity as and, like, how I viewed God as. Uh, like, and how, like, my friends also viewed it, like, growing up where I live and stuff. It's whenever you push religion on, like, a little kid, they're not gonna see eye to eye with what, adults see it as because it doesn't really make sense to a kid. So, anyways, I used to go to my friend's house like every single week, or he would come over to my house every single week, and we'd hang out or like talk, or probably just go in the woods. More realistically, like every single day or every single time I'd go over to his house, we go in the woods. Every time he come over to my house, we go in the woods and just like mess around, make teepees, houses. But my friend one day was like, "Hey, like Alex, I saw this like deep pit in the woods that has like this log that goes across it. Like it was like a I would whenever you said deep pit, I thought it was gonna be like a 10-foot little hole and then like a fallen tree across it. I'm telling you, even as a kid, I saw how insane it was. It was actually like a cavern. Like I don't even know how it was just in the woods, but it was like a deep pit. It was like a weird little canyon in like the woods that like deep in the woods that we used to go into, and there was this huge thick dead tree that fell across it, so it was like a bridge across it. And I remember, this ties into what I was saying about Christianity and like the filters through kids eyes. My friend was like, "Hey, if you really believe in God, he won't let you fall and die if you walk across this log. like over this huge pit. And I was like, what the crap? Because at the bottom of the pit, it's like, I don't know what happened. I get it might have been from like the dead trees around it, but this pit was full of just sticks and broken logs sticking up. So it was like literally if you fell, you'd get like impaled by one of these trees. So my friend was like, if you walk across it, like if you really believe in God and if you really have faith, you won't die. Like you won't fall and die. Dude, like that's one of the stupidest like situations I've ever been in. And even back then I was like, bro, this is stupid. Like we're going to die doing this crap. So I personally never walked across it because I questioned cuz I was like I have questions. So I think God might let me fall to my death. So if since I'm having questions, so I'm not going to walk across this log, right? But my friend, he was doing some crazy stuff. He was like running back and forth on this log, like over the pit, and he was like, "Bro, yeah, I mean, you can't die if you believe in God." Like, I know now that's not like what the Bible says at all or what anything says at all. So like that's the scariest thing ever thinking about like thinking back on like how I used to view religion and how my friends used to view religion. And I remember that specific day, his neighbor, she came with us and she also was running back and forth across the log. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, I'm not going to go near, you guys are insane. And I remember I walked around the pit and like, I guess water collected in the woods or something. So I ruined my shoes walking through the mud and stuff. And then my friends were like, Beck, you're going to hell, right? Like you're going to hell because you don't believe in God. Like, are you like Satan or something? And I just don't want to die walking across a log, bro. Like, I feel like I was the only, like, person that was sane in that situation. I remember I was sitting in the woods with this random girl that was his neighbor, and then my buddy, and they were like both sitting there pressing me, like, "Hey, Alex, you believe in Satan or something?" And I was like, I don't like the guy. I don't really know much about him. And they started like talking to me about like random like Christianity stuff, like that had nothing to do with. Anyways, that story is just to talk about like we used to view Christianity like I grew up thinking that's what Christianity was. Is like God protects you in some way or like he watches over you, and then Christians kind of had like a higher up in his like Christians mattered way more than people that didn't believe. Like that's kind of what I believed whenever I was growing up and stuff. And bro, it was so bad. Like it was so weird. I remember so many different situations like that. But anyways, I grew up like this. This whole thing, all the way, it sounds so stupid, but I believed this kind of crap till I was in like sixth grade. Like I believed that, Christians were held higher in God's eyes than, people that didn't believe. And I thought I was one of the people that didn't believe because I didn't have as much faith as everyone around me. Like faith, you know. So whenever I moved schools to like a Christian school, I talked about like why I did that in a different video, like the video before this. If you want to watch it, I don't know if I remember to tag it right here. I definitely won't. But go looking for that, the most recent post. But I remember I moved schools and it was I moved to a Christian school and I still go to that school. And I moved, and I remember the first project we had, because at my school we have Bible teachers. First project we had to write about like how Jesus was in our lives or something, like a paragraph or something. And I didn't know how to spell Jesus, bro. Like that's how little I knew about Christianity. I didn't realize until that moment. I was like, I don't know anything about Christianity, bro. Like I didn't know how to spell Jesus. I knew how to spell God though, because it was like God. But like I didn't capitalize the G. I still messed up. But anyways, I basically didn't really know anything, and through like different years of going to the Christian school I go to now, I've learned a lot of different things. I've learned a lot of different perspectives. But the thing is, the paradox of going to a Christian school is you learn about like the essence of Christianity and like what Jesus like wanted and like stood for and everything. But you see it from a lot of different perspectives because you don't have the same Bible teacher and you don't have like the same like pastor on Tuesdays. Like my school does like these like kind of sermons things on Tuesdays, every single Tuesday. Like, you never have the same pastor, you never have the same Bible teacher year by year. So you're always seeing something completely different. Like, some took the Bible as like super like interpretive, and some of them said like the Bible was just a rule book. Like, there's two different types of Christians in that way. Like, there are people that look at the Bible and say like the Bible says it has to be right, it has to be completely true. Like, it says this happened in the Bible, can't be interpreted any different. It says this word in the Bible can't be interpreted any different. It This is what it is. There's no going off the path of what it means. And then there's other Bible teachers that talked about like things that happened in the Bible, and they're like, this may or may not have happened because the Bible has been translated, and it could have just been like a story someone wrote to teach a lesson about something. Like, and it wasn't meant to be taken literally. But then there are other Bible teachers, the next year that would crash out if they heard like one Bible teacher said that. So yeah, a lot of confusion growing up, in middle school and early high school, and in high school it was completely different. Like, teachers completely different, because in high school it's like the teachers teach different grades. So I had the same Bible teacher for 2 years, and then a different Bible teacher for 2 years. So I got to hear their points for an extra year, about their viewpoints on different things and like different answers to my questions. But then I'd ask the same questions to a different teacher, and they'd say something different. So it really didn't make sense, because like, how can there be so many different viewpoints on the same topic? If we're all Christians, how can there be so many different interpretations of the same thing, if that makes sense? Like, I'm assuming if you're watching this video, even still, like, you've had those same situations where you've had questions, or you've had, concerns, or you've had, weird things running through your mind that you ask one person something, and they'll give you like an answer that kind of makes sense, and then you'll ask someone else and they'll give you an answer that's like, oh, just have faith, or that person that answered your question last time was wrong, because this is what it is. So you go back and forth in your mind, and it doesn't really make sense, like, at all. But like, it's just so difficult, to be honest. It's so difficult to put it into words. But that feeling of just hopelessness, because you don't know what's going on anymore. Like, you don't even know if you're sane anymore, because you're like, how can so many people have faith and I'm not able to? And that's another point I want to bring up, is people just saying you need to have faith on things, which sucks. I don't understand why I would follow a religion, or, like, okay, for context, I do right now. But from these people's perspective that just say, like, you just have to have faith instead of asking questions, I don't understand from their viewpoint how they could follow a religion that they just don't get any answers from, like, their questions, where they don't even want to question anything that comes in their mind about that religion. Like, I'm at a point now where I ask questions and it makes sense, and then I like find those answers and it all makes sense to me, like, where I can work through things. But the thing is, from their perspective, how can you just live a life where you just want to live your life in comfort instead of asking questions? And then, so whenever other people come and ask you questions about your religion, you aren't prepared to answer those questions. So you drive them away from your religion in doing that, if that makes sense. So I think if you're going to follow a religion, you need to look for answers and never just take things with like a grain of salt, or never just wave off things like big questions that make sense. Like, the thing is, you can wave off things like, was Noah's Ark like really something that happened or something that didn't happen? Because either way, it's something that affects people. If it's fake or if it's real, it has the same effect. But the thing is, if you wave off big questions that you have, if you wave off things that completely would change your viewpoint on life itself, if you're just like, you just gotta have faith, man, whatever, like, that's going to drive people away, and it's going to make you just seem like a numbskull, if that makes sense. It makes people be able to just, like, ask you tough questions and disprove all your beliefs in just a couple questions, if that makes sense. So if you're going to follow a religion, really try to focus on that. Really try to focus on, like, finding answers for yourself. But the thing is, where was I in my story? I was like early high school to like late high school, kind of, where I would ask Bible teachers things and they would all have different viewpoints. Anyways, moving on. There are two different types of Christians that are my age, in my opinion. I think there are two different types. There's like a third type, but that's kind of like a rare, like a kind of middle ground. But you usually fall into one or two categories. There's one category where there are just so many different people that go to all these churches and youth groups and like outside of school get-togethers with like teenagers their age, but they only go there to like to talk to the huzz, man, if that makes sense. To lack of better terms, they go there and they like say they're changing and they like give their life to Jesus. If that like they say that they're going to change is what I'm saying. Like giving your life to Jesus, that's a great thing. But thing is, people do it for, like performatively, if that makes sense. Like they don't do it for themselves, and they do it for, you know, to look better on the outside. They think it like excuses like all the bad things they do if they're, seen as a Christian, seen as someone that, is trying to push their life in a better direction, if that makes sense. There are those people who go to these churches and then afterwards they, do terrible things in the parking lot or do terrible things, somewhere else right after church. Or, people who go to these like church camps and stuff and they like turn their life around, but then like 2 weeks later they're back to doing what they, would have done, or even less than that, like a day later, they haven't changed at all and their, life is completely the same. There are Christians like that. And then on the other hand, there are also Christians that are super just into the Bible. You know what I'm saying? Like they're super, like they take things like so literally and they defend it with their lives. Like they get in arguments, they yell at people. They don't want to go off of any type of like maybe this part of the Bible is interpretive. Like this doesn't really make sense to me. Like there are people that just do that are so strict on like what the Bible means and says that they don't want to go off of what it says, if that makes sense. So and they're like super like mean. Like in my experience, I'm not saying all people are like this, but people who are usually like super like they don't want to go off of what the Bible says, like those people are usually some of the most aggressive and like most unattractive, like I say unattractive whenever I mean like they're not attracting you to their religion, like type of people you'll ever meet, because you'll do something wrong and they'll be like, oh my god, that's against what the Bible says, bro. Like are you a Satanist? Are you a Satanist? Like I've actually had people say crap like that to me. People are like, are you atheist? Are you atheist, bro? Like that's a lot of people that I talk to whenever I talk about any type of question I have, like cuz you can't even ask questions most of the time in the school that I go to, because a lot of people around me are just like, bro, are you atheist? Like, the Bible says that you should believe this. The Bible says it, so are you an atheist? Like, they'll say stuff like that, being completely serious. And it, like, throws me off because I don't understand how you can't, like, try to have questions in your minds, you know? But, like I was saying, there's, like, it doesn't always fall into these two people groups. There's a very healthy in between that I think I'm in, I would consider myself in, and like a lot of people I know, like where you're kind of in an in between state where you are like asking questions and not taking, questions that don't make sense for, complete truth, and just having faith for no reason. You know, I think that's a great place to be if you're in Christianity. Like if you're, you know, talking about things that don't make sense instead of just being like you have to have faith, bro. Like I think the best place to be is like, say you have a question. You look in the Bible, you're reading the Bible and something doesn't make sense. You ask questions about it and then say someone answers back with something that doesn't really make sense. And you don't, instead of being like, "Oh, okay," and then just like moving on about your day, or being like, "Oh, okay, that doesn't really make sense," and then waving it off, you know? The best thing to do is if someone doesn't make sense, be like, that doesn't really make sense to me, you know? And then do your own research, like read the context of the Bible. Like I've heard this really cool saying from my Bible teacher this year where it says, don't ever read a Bible verse, which that sounds so extreme. But what it means is don't just read a Bible verse and cherry pick what sounds good, but to read like the context of what you're reading in. Instead of reading one Bible verse or like a couple Bible verses around it, think of the time period in which this book was written in the Bible. Or think about like the big picture of what it meant to these people that are saying it, instead of interpreting it as it's a verse that's written to me, because it's not written to you, it's written for you, if that makes more sense. But what was I even talking about? I went on like a huge rant. But instead of just reading a Bible verse and like not making sense, look it up. You have Google, man. Like, it sounds bad, but maybe go on like ChatGPT once in a while if you can't find it. Like, ask questions, find pastors, find people who are your age who have the same questions, and see from different perspectives to find the best answer in your mind that brings you comfort and fits like what you believe the most. If that makes sense. Like, find answers instead of waving things off, if that makes sense. That's where I'm at in my life, where I have a journal over there where I read the Bible, or I, have questions in my head like throughout my day where something doesn't really make sense to me in the Bible, or someone says something, or I read, or like I hear a pastor say something at my school, or a Bible teacher, and I'll carry that journal wherever I go. It's always in my backpack, or always just sitting in my room, where I write down all the questions I have, and then I go home afterwards and I try to answer those questions to the best of my ability, like reasoning, and then I read around the verse. I read the chapter, I read, articles about this verse. I look it up. I like see if I can find people who have questions about the same thing I have questions on, because there are so many people out there that have the same amount of questions as you, who most likely have the same question as you specifically, like who can really help you change your view on everything. And I've found that to be like super, super helpful, instead of just taking things with like complete certainty, if that makes sense. So I don't know. I just basically want to talk about like where I am in religion, and basically just give my viewpoint on like what I think Christianity is like all about from my perspective, because Christianity is so confusing. Like, even the most, devout Christian will have questions. Even the most like person that's read the Bible 50 times and they're 90 years old, they're going to have questions if they admit it or not. Nobody can ever completely understand it because it's confusing. Christianity is so confusing. So, if you take anything from this video away, ask questions. Don't take what other people say around you. Ask questions yourself, and don't take answers that don't make sense. Like, you're not meant to completely understand everything. Like, nobody can always understand everything in religion. Not so there's some questions that nobody can have the answer to. But the thing is, humans can't really understand a lot of things, if that makes sense. Like, as humans, we want to know everyone. Like, that's how we wanted to know everything. Like, that's how we were created. But a lot of the time, that's not possible, and it's hard to accept that sometimes. Anyways, like, don't stress yourself out about questions, though. Like, ask questions, but don't make that, everything, if that makes sense, because that's not what we were put here to be. Anyways, yeah, that's where I am with religion. If you, relate to this video at all, like, I'm sure it's relatable in some way to a lot of people. Make sure you subscribe, and maybe I'll see that you guys like this type of content, and I'll make more videos about it. Or, like the video if you specifically like this video. I'm probably going to do a lot more rant videos like this for those people who watch my videos. Let me know in the comments if you like videos like this, or stuff you have questions about in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Like, obviously I would love to hear them. I love talking to you guys in the comments. Follow my TikTok if you want to. My TikTok recently hit 2,000 followers, so that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. We're growing pretty big. Same thing with my Discord. So, yeah. Ask questions, man. Ask questions in the comments. Anyways, there should be videos popping up around here. I wonder if it looks like I'm holding them right now. of what YouTube wants you to watch, what YouTube recommends you out of my videos. So, I'll see you guys in the next video. I love you guys. See ya.